Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Tuesday study group. I'm Gretchen Berry, CMO at Buddy INS. And with me today are Jason Dutra. Of course, you all know Jason Dutra, head of customer success. I also have Joe Filipenko. He is our marketing consultant, and some of you have definitely had some interactions with him with marketing materials. And then somewhere in the wings, waiting in the wings, is Mark Glickman, our CEO, which I think most of you know Mark. So, anyway, our topic today is one that we get a lot of questions about. So, I think this is a good time to cover this, especially in the summer, because things, well, sort of slow down depending on what your business focus is. So it's a good time to plan for the fall and, what you're going to do as far as prospecting. So how do you find long-term care clients? So we're going to focus on how to shake that tree. How to shake your current tree is actually what we want to focus on. So let's actually first get started with Jason. I think I'm going to start with you. What do you think? What does it mean to you to shake your own tree of prospects?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a lot of layers to it. I think
Mhm.
when you hear shake the tree, that can definitely inspire in your mind a lot of like reactive action. So reactively going out and making a push to find prospects. But I also think that there are systems you can put in place to keep the tree shaking all the time. So I would say both are really good approaches, but I think if you have control over your data, over what's available in product and market knowledge, changes that are going on in clients' lives, those things can be used to create a good system to always find and act on good reasons to reach out to people, whether it
Yeah.
is current clients, whether it's prospects who have been sort of taking a while to warm up, whether it's somebody you've maybe gotten a little bit down the road with, but they fell off. I think that's why I say there's a lot of levels to it. There's a lot of fruit you're trying to shake from the tree, a lot of different types, and there's a lot of different ways to shake it. So that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I agree, and I think today we'll probably cover some traditional elements of prospecting. I'm a huge firm believer in consistency and in your communication. So have something that's consistent. We'll also, I think, touch a little bit on how AI can help you. I know, for some AI can be like a scary thing, but we're using it every day in our practice, and so we'll touch on that too. I think as it relates to how to go through your list and segment your list. I think AI can help save a lot of time for you in that. So, Mark, do you have any comments on that? Welcome
Uh,
to the world of the on video.
yeah, sorry, I was on my phone. But I think you should try to attract what types of clients you want. So I definitely am a believer in having a great outcome as your finished goal. So if you know kind of what products you're offering, it kind of tells you who you want to be offering it to and work backwards. And then when you shake the tree, you know that that's going to be a good fit, in terms of conversion. Also, not probably bringing up anything mind-blowing here, but I'm a big believer in focusing on your warm markets. We have plenty of relationships, we have plenty of COI referral partners that advocate for long-term care planning. So really, you don't have to look too far to find opportunities. Some people we talk to, they're like, I don't know where to find opportunities. And I'm like, you probably could just walk next door, quite frankly, or during your next policy review with your client, bring this up. So don't have to be rocket science. You don't have to use sophisticated tools even. AI is just another tool that can help you scale, but it shouldn't get in your way of just having that conversation.
Totally agree. All right. So, where should we start with this then? Now that we've done a little intro, I think maybe let's talk about looking at your prospect list and segmenting your prospect list to try to figure out who's actually ripe for an LTC conversation. And it can be so. Mark and Jason, I don't want to just focus on individual. I think we also need to talk about, because we get a lot of questions about this, how do I find those groups, those potential group opportunities in my current client list? So I don't know if either one of you want to jump on that one.
Yeah, I think if you have a column in your data set that says is a business owner for some of your individual clients, that's easily the number one way to start really finding group opportunities if they exist, even if that business owner already has a policy for themselves. The opportunity to extend that coverage to their employees with no health underwriting, which that business owner client may have had experience going through, really starts to resonate for sure. Of course, there are going to be some business owner clients that you've done individual policy executive carve-outs with that might not be as compelling of an offering, but you never know. With individual products, there may be an executive or two that didn't make it through underwriting on the individual offering, and offering guaranteed issue is actually a super breath of fresh air and a way to actually make that employee who was excluded as whole as possible. And even if they're not interested in doing anything for their employees, business owners tend to hang out or at least be in contact with each other. I don't know many businesses that don't operate on some sort of B2B level in some way, shape, or form. So I also think beyond being good prospects, they can help provide you with good prospects. So I'll keep it simple right there and just pick out the easiest item as business owners that you've worked with.
Yeah, good point. Mark, do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, I would add, I always start with your advocates because you know that they're going to be on your side to want to make this happen, either for themselves or for those around them. A lot of times, the business owners Jason's referring to, they want to bring long-term care solutions to the ones that they care about around them. So doing a deed for someone else may be more motivating than even doing it for themselves. And I would definitely lean into that. I would talk to the partners that you have, the B2B people that you work with. You're all business owners for the most part, right? A lot of us in this room. You have CPAs, you have other folks that provide you services. The ones that advocate are the ones to bring this up to. We have, individual, we have group products that go down to 3 lives. It's very attainable, accessible, getting these solutions. And because they work with you, they probably know a little bit about what you do already. So it won't be surprising when you have these conversations. They want to learn from your expertise. So to me, those are actually the easiest conversations to have. It's not icky feeling, like I'm selling to my friends and my family. It's like I can actually solve problems and help people that I care about around me. But you have to ask those questions and bring up the conversation, and then you'll learn a lot more about them than you realize that they've had a personal experience, caregiving, etc. I've had a lot of really positive
To
conversations
put an
that
extra
way.
layer on that, Mark, unless you are an individual, independent, long-term care specialist, you work for a business owner who could potentially offer this to their employees, you being among them. So now you are advocating for your own benefits from your own workplace. And what a great place to turn to for consultation on doing that if you're a business owner, than your own long-term care specialist. So I'm here to point out for the most part, some of the like really close proximity, high probability possibilities that you have in front of you, because I think that's the best place to start. And I think a lot of people struggle with a mindset block that leads them to be a bit resistant to prospecting, resistant to starting prospecting, or having an excuse not to prospect. Yeah, as Mark said, it can feel a little icky sometimes. I guess that's probably the best word for it, to prospect for new clients, but it's absolutely essential. So if you find yourself struggling with that block, what better way to get over it than going after the easiest and closest proximity opportunities?
Well, yes, and I completely agree with both of you. But I also think that the step before that, um, or the step that you need to take right now, if you're not already doing it, is consistently being in front of people, of your prospect list. And that can be something as simple as a regular newsletter, which was one of the very first things we implemented here at Buddy, which I'm assuming most of you get, which is a monthly newsletter, because you want to continue that trust factor. You want to make sure that you're in front of them, your name is in front of them, they see you all the time, and that's one way to do it. So before you even, start segmenting your list and picking up the phone or whatever you're going to do, you want to make sure that you're continuously feeding that sort of trust factor through your marketing efforts on
Super
a
good point.
consistent basis. So,
Yeah, another suggestion would be maybe something similar to like a twice a week study group where you're
yeah,
sending out agendas and recordings, and you're providing value to a community. That
right.
being in front of people helps. And I think everything that surrounds it, just from like my own personal experience doing this for 5 years or so, I would say the most inbound inquiries that I get that aren't from kind of our usual pathways are from responses to an agenda or a recording for a study group. And
Right.
that just comes from the regularity. People know they're going to see an email from me at least 2 to 4 times a week, and they can just respond to me that way. They know how to get a hold of me.
Right. Yep, exactly. So, so then let's take it to the next level. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. Let's look at the list. And I don't know which one of you wants to take this question, but how exactly, what is the practical way, a practical way, or a few practical ways to segment your list? I know, Jason, you talked about if you have business owners, okay, that definitely a fantastic way to to get that initial segmentation. But are there other ways that people can look at their list and get a good feel for those hottest prospects?
Yeah, I think I'll let Mark take the majority as far as like building the house of data. A CRM will do a lot of this for you, and many of you are using them. I'll let Mark be technical about it, but I think it is kind of a marriage of product knowledge, market knowledge, and that data that will allow you to infer the best way to sort of segment that list. For example, if there is a new product coming out that meets older age ranges or younger age ranges, segmenting by age to find the ideal people to reach out to deliver the news of that new product, is a great example. Um, any sort of product fire sale, if you're keeping good notes on what products you've discussed with someone, and the product generation that you talk to them about with more favorable rates is going to be going away, and a new product is going to take its place that's more expensive, it's a great time to reach out and say, is this something that you'd like to review before it's no longer available? I think there are infinite sort of possibilities you can pull from that. So that's why staying up to date with product and carrier news and keeping good records in your CRM help you to segment that and really be timely. I think that's key.
I love that you talked about the notes because and keeping good records in your CRM because the more information you have on each of your contacts, yeah, the more opportunities you'll have
One of
to
the biggest
do that.
improvements that we have seen as a company with AI is probably the treatment of data, and that's still
Mhm.
ongoing. AI can really help you get into the nooks and crannies of data in a way that would take you 10 times the amount of time or more to actually find those candidates. So if you've taken good notes and kept good records up to now, and that's a solution you end up getting yourself into, it is a pretty large payoff in being able to find the right people for any given opportunity.
Yeah, I know Mark wants to jump in on this one for sure, but I want to, he's the being the data nerd that he is. But I want to bring Joe in too, because Joe just did a similar project for us on a list that sort of came as a surprise to us. But Joe, do you want to give your take on how to segment list using AI or how to identify the top opportunities?
Goes on mute.
Joe, you're on mute.
Sorry, just a little message popped. I was like, oh, I'm mute. Yes, as Gretchen said, we had an instance come up here recently that we had some contacts come in and they were kind of sort of unsorted at the moment. And so I was tasked with, identifying those and then getting them into the correct segments. And so one of the things for us was trying to identify if they were a consumer or a B2B lead. And so I used our AI tools to connect to our HubSpot to connect and match records that we did have on them to identify which group they belong to quickly. And then we were able to sort and customize that list and then get them to the proper segments if they're for consumer based marketing or if they're on the B2B side. Um, so it's super powerful if you do use like we use Claude Cowork or if you're using ChatGPT. They just launched their new work application. If you haven't checked it out, definitely worth checking out. And then connecting wherever your CRM lives. So if you do natively use HubSpot, um, there's Active Campaign. I mean, it links to anything, even if you have just your database inside of, Google, your account there, linking it and then asking the questions like, hey, can you please create a segment for me based on, and if you have all the data too of like the age, like anybody, maybe you have a younger group of segment age or maybe closer towards retirement. And then you can now create specific and targeted marketing or outreach messaging to those age based on those demographics and segments that you create there too. So
Yep.
that's one idea that I could think of. So I'll turn
Yeah.
it over to you, Mark.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll play off of that because I was going in that same direction. Remember in the beginning when I said working backwards from the solution? Well, we have different solutions like in the individual market for 65 plus. So if you know that you're prospecting in that demographic, you want to lead with where you know you're going to be able to drive value and there will be interest. So I might look at clients that have assets in the annuity long-term care market or looking in the right states in the short-term care market, right, for pay-as-you-go solutions. But I think it is important that you kind of deliver, hey, I have this new product, kind of like what Jason was saying with new product offerings or fire sales that's going to add value for you. And I would also recommend opening up with just leading questions. People want to talk about themselves. They want to share their concerns, the things they're trying to solve for. They don't want to hear, a sales pitch, especially if these are like your warm relationships, like we talked about earlier. We start asking them about their business, you start asking about their individual needs. You're going to start to uncover these signals that will let you bring up that solution that you kind of are leading them towards. But it's a very different solution if it's 65 plus versus you're a business owner, you're actively at work, you're a younger person. So I think to Joe's point, it's important that you segment and you don't just lead blindly with, here's an LTC generic solution because I don't think it's going to lead to that productive of a conversation or a great outcome if it's not the right fit.
That's a good
Can I add something there? Because I think it's
point.
important that the segmenting um, does a lot beyond that for you too. I know when we're meeting with a client or like say we're delivering a policy that's been placed is a great time to prospect, right? Everything's completed. You've done a good job. Everybody's feeling good. We got the sigh of relief that the whole process is now completed. It's a great time to prospect, or really whenever you are in person prospecting, if you are looking at active segments and are actively targeting certain segments, like Mark said, for annuity long-term care people who actually have annuities, that's a great um, way to be targeted in your prospecting because I think it's very difficult to prospect and it's very awkward to prospect and doesn't present well when you just say, is there anybody out there that I can help? As opposed to, I'm looking for folks who have existing annuities that may not be accomplishing their goals anymore, are of maybe this age range that are pre-retirement, or if you're in front of somebody who's a great prospect for that, somebody like yourself, you were a great candidate for this planning solution. Is there anybody else you know that I could help in that same way, or even think I could help? I can't guarantee I can help everyone, but if you have an idea of somebody who may be in a similar situation, I know I can help them like I helped you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that leading with a solution like what you said, Mark, allows anyone to then map out what it is because um, one of the questions was, should advisors be leading with product, the planning need, or something else entirely? And I think it's going to depend on what you've identified as the solution and working backwards, and then you segment your list based on that, and then you determine whatever your pitch is going to be. And I hate to call it that, but um, uh, based on whatever that solution is. So you do want to kind of you need to do some pre-work basically to map out what your strategy is going to be for a specific segment.
I agree. And I think when it comes to is it, you know, product need versus planning need or something else, I think it also really depends on their entry point to you. You know, who referred you, if they filled out a form, did they have any burning questions? I would generally want to answer those first. But if it's kind of somebody who came to me from the ether with very little context, maybe I know a little bit about them, I would generally start with a question, right? And I would generally start with a question around the planning need. You know, what is kind of your concern for your family if you were to have an extended care event, or who would you sort of like to protect in the event of your needing extended care, and kind of going from there to figure out their why. But in talking prospecting, there's a lot of context that could have different entry points that dictate a different beginning to the conversation for me.
Right. So do you think that there are clients who are naturally okay? So we're talking about prospecting, but part of prospecting is also referrals. So you may have a list of clients you've already sold a solution to, but the client hasn't taken that next step for the referral, probably mostly because you never asked for it. I know that's an issue. So let's talk a little bit about referral relationships and what's the best type of client who's naturally a better referral source for long-term care.
I can let Mark cover this one, but I would say
You're being
his
voluntold, Mark.
his answer around An earlier question with long-term care advocates, I think has some, a lot to do with that being a good referral source.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll go more specific in that I would look at your female clients, right? This really resonates as a topic for women being caregivers, being the primary recipients of care, having that personal experience, right, is the primary motivator where you're going to get a lot of support to want to bring the solution to themselves, but also the people around them as a referral partner. So that's where I would open up the conversation. Other great partnerships are in the industry would be those companies that you work with that provide long-term care services, right? Like companies like Amada Senior Care, companies that provide home care, assisted living. So to me, that's a very natural fit, right? They're personally working day in and day out to help people with long-term care needs. Many of them, maybe most of them, don't have a long-term care plan themselves. Financial planners who you work with, the same thing. Many of them are helping their clients have successful retirements. They don't have a long-term care plan themselves. Sometimes it's just they haven't seen the quick and easy solutions that you may have available. They're only familiar with some of those solutions that are less innovative, I'll say. And it's about that awareness, right? Adding value and opening up that conversation. So to me, that's kind of the way to engage with your referral partners is if they aren't looking for themselves, then it's less likely they'll understand what to present to their clients. When they've explored it for themselves, they become a subject matter expert through that exploration. So to me, it's almost a necessary step that they've at least considered it or they've at least owned it, because then they're not going to be afraid to bring it up.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. It's difficult these days to continue to run a successful business without those types of partnerships, whether you're talking about your current clients, because as referral partners, so that's why it's critical to continue to nurture those folks, even current clients. You definitely want to nurture them, whether they're a long-term care client and you're giving them information on claims or on caregiving, like Mark was talking about with Amada. So then let's sort of transition from that to like for brokers. Let's talk a little bit about group. For brokers who already have employer relationships, what do you think is the best way to introduce group long-term care without disrupting that existing relationship? Because like I think Jason, it was you that said, you don't want to just walk in and drop this like long-term care idea. You want to be very focused and purposeful about your conversation. So what is a good way that you guys think to do that without, like I said, without disrupting the relationship dynamic, whatever that might be?
I'll give you an anecdote maybe on recent experience I had with this, but a lot of times we're talking to people that are in our industry or know what we do.
Mhm.
So I was talking to a friend who's a provider of like market intelligence for the insurance industry. And she was asking, or I was asking her about which annuity products have long-term care riders and how much total premium was sold, because that's what her business is. And we were just getting to talk about, what's going on. And the group market has the best products for even for individuals. And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you can get this even if you have just as few as 3 employees, and you can get a product that's, half the price maybe of an individual product." She's like, "Well, I don't qualify. I'm uninsurable." And I said, "Well, these are guaranteed issue products. So as long as you're actively at work, you are insurable." And it's just like a light bulb moment went off in her head. And so we started talking and then we went through, and it's just about having that like real quick follow-up piece. That's why we use the one pagers. It's just makes it easy to kind of say, well, here's a look at what a proposal might look like. And yeah, it was just the perfect fit. And it was right there, but she had no idea it existed. And this is somebody in the industry that does market research for insurance products. So a lot of these are like hidden in plain sight, and it's just having a trusted person that brings up that conversation. But that's how, that's how I personally do it. It's just about adding value and being honest about it. It's not like we're trying to sell something. It's that this is really exciting what I'm seeing in the industry, and you're a nerd in the industry like we are. You're going to want to know about this too.
Yeah, I think again, there's a couple of different ways to look at this when you talk about brokers that have group relationships. It could be no experience with long-term care, experience with long-term care in the past, but unfamiliar with kind of the present day workings of the group long-term care market, or somewhere in the middle. Um, I think for us, and this goes for folks who would leverage us for group long-term care, it's really, yes, important to understand the products, but understanding how to educate, understanding how to communicate, and understanding how to enroll is a really, really big part of participation in a product like long-term care, which is really hard to educate on and get participation in without some, level of employer funding. Also, the products in the market work a lot differently than they did, say, 10 years ago. So you can help people get up to speed. By helping them get up to speed, they start to see the resources that you already have at your fingertips to help with education, communication, enrollment, all of that stuff with sales. Um, and I know if groups have existing clients and they know even a little bit about long-term care and they know kind of the difficulties, they will understand the benefits of working with a specialist and the benefit of having out-of-the-box solutions that they really can't get anywhere else. So that's, I think, part to what Mark is saying. If you are consultative, naturally you will use some of the things that we're offering to employers out there every day and offering to brokers out there every day, and they'll understand the value of that and want to work with you. It's not so much about, here, let me drop a bunch of products on your plate. Look how good they are. Don't you want to work with us? It's the consultation blending in and giving people value, making them feel like they're in the know and that you're there to help if they want that help. Because there's just a lot to dig through and it takes a village. I think folks who are really entrenched in the group side understand that, and they know it's hard to find really, really good resources from a carrier. So having allies really helps. So I think it's really less of a challenge than people think, but you have to still navigate it in a consultative way while still being able to show yourself off, or your long-term care partner off, to a degree.
Yep. I
Yeah.
want to add to
Oh,
that.
go ahead, Mark.
One thing that we all know kind of intuitively, and what's frustrating about a business is how long it takes people to take action. And just that long sales cycle, it almost causes you to, not want to nurture that, or you wants you to, give up. Is this person ever going to move forward? But there's another side to that that can benefit you, which is there's prospects out there that people have nurtured for years that they have not followed up with. And when you step in, they're much more later in the buying cycle. So you can actually take advantage of the fact that there has been a lot of groundwork done and build that relationship. And they're going to go with you if that other agent hasn't followed up with them. So to me, yeah, having a system and a CRM is going to help you stay in front of them. The newsletter idea that Gretchen mentioned, but it is that follow up that's the key part of this business. It is just a matter of time before it clicks. That person's in the right financial place, the person's in the right mental space to want to do this. And you just have to be there at the right time. And to me, that's the key to this business. And I think I tell our team this all the time. Showing up and following up are probably the two biggest things that we can do. And then that builds the trust. And again, as long as you have the trust, then they're going to take your advice for how to do those next steps and help them navigate, kind of the process with them.
Right. Um, I've been reading through the activity in the chat, and Chris had a good point about inertia. That's definitely, when Mark talks about, you know, show up and follow up, that's what helps create that inertia. In I think the HubSpot world, there's a term called the flywheel, and that's part of that too. It's that flywheel gets things moving. So that consistency in your messaging, even like Jason brought up earlier, these study groups. These study groups aren't just nice live events that we do twice a week, which is a lot. It's probably more than most organizations do. But they also serve another purpose, and that is to continue to engage with our community. And then the third purpose that we sort of just pleasantly discovered recently was it's driving SEO, and so all of this packaged together and the consistency really serves a huge purpose in continuing that inertia and continuing that flywheel that we talk about. So yeah, just being here is number one.
Just be here.
A lot of people, and I'm sure Jason even more so, have told me I've been meaning to go to that study group, right? It's just like on their mind that they want to attend, and I'm sure many of you in this room probably are thinking the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I have a little anecdote when we were selling our house in Sonoma County several years ago. When we bought that house, a different agent, real estate agent, started sending us a mailer every, I think it was quarterly. And it included like some kind of tchotchke, like a notepad or something. And we were in that house for 10 years, and he did that for 10 years. And guess who we got to sell our house? It was him, because he was in the area. He kept telling us, I'm in your area. I live where you live. So all of that just yeah, it can take 3 years. It can take 2 years. It can take 4 years, but the consistency will definitely play out in a successful way.
The first time somebody you've never met in person comes up to you and said, "Hey, I read your newsletter," or "Hey, I watch your study group when I'm on the elliptical at the gym on Saturdays," like that's when you really start to get the sense of, showing up and doing something, anything, once a week, once a month, once a year that people can count on regularly has an impact, right? And I know um, Diane on the call has done a session around this, but she, you know, has a custom birthday song that her husband writes and sends to clients every year for their birthday. She also has a Friday story, an uplifting
Yep.
story to take you into the weekend every single week. And um, I've been getting the Friday story for like 5 years. If it ever stopped showing up, I would probably perform a wellness check. Those things really entrench you in ways that matter, and it doesn't have to be related to what you are selling. It has to
Right.
be related to relating to people.
Yeah.
David has his once every week or two
Monday.
comic strip,
Yep.
right?
I get those. Yep.
Yeah. So we
I
all
don't get
know
that. Put me
those
on
ones that
that.
we like. Yeah.
Thanks for the
There you
mention.
go, David.
Put me on that. I want that.
I got you. Don't worry. I'll put it in.
Appreciate it.
Glad you guys enjoy it.
Every Monday.
It's actually every other Monday.
Oh, I thought it was every Monday.
If you don't open it, it'll get resent back to you the following Monday, the exact
Oh,
same one.
okay.
So
That's good to know.
yeah,
That's
That's
actually a
cool.
cool
That's
idea.
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
every
that.
other.
Yeah, cool. Lots of cool ideas.
Yeah,
Inspiration.
thanks.
So Chris says if you have never read or listened to Brian Buffini, is that right? You need to replace real estate agent with X. Okay, good tip. All
Another good
right.
book or resource that I personally loved reading myself is called The Referral Engine. And that was another really good one that talked about how to ask for referrals, and it goes into more like the studies of how, somebody that you've done business with, how they, when you go to ask for a referral, like, hey, do you know anybody in your network, that I would be interested, in also long-term care planning? You're like, oh my gosh, yes, Susie down the street, she just started caring for her mother. She'd love to hear about this, It's kind of how to, open up and get those referrals from people that you're already working with, and then, as you are working with those people, just being actively listening to maybe cues or little breadcrumbs they're dropping along the way of like, oh yeah, I work in HR, like, oh my gosh, as you're done finishing up, like, did you know you can maybe talk to, and present this to your whole staff, or to the entire group. So definitely a lot of really cool ideas that book shares.
There's you just reminded me of something, Joe. There is a podcast called Sales Logic, and they just did, I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but it came through my podcast feed the other day, how AI is transforming the way we sell. So I was going to listen to that. So anyway, it's called Sales Logic, and they do a lot of like sort of cutting edge selling strategies. So
This may seem obvious, but I want to make sure another thing is said, that getting referrals is a great thing, but I think it's also important to speak up and have a ready-made way for people to make that warm referral, whether it be view my website, whether it be here's a couple things, you could say. You don't have to have it rehearsed. I'd like it to sound genuine from you, or yeah, here's a 2-minute video on just what I do. Appreciate it if you shared it with somebody you loved. Some way to kind of build that bridge, especially for referral partners who are doing this in a professional setting and want to tee you up professionally. Having a way to make that trust transfer not only warm but legitimate and professional. Don't forget that step.
yeah, Romeo said there's several aging networks and provider lunches in my area. Been going for years. They call me to help residents with claim forms, etc. And I get referrals from all of this. That is fantastic. He's known as the long-term care guy. I love that, Romeo.
I think that's kind of another thing too, like going back to the consistency. I know when I was very young and early and green in sales, I know the one thing that would be like, did you ask for referrals? Did you ask for referrals? And it's like, no, I don't want to bother them, yada, yada, yada. But like once I got over that hump and it became part of my, like every time I complete a sale and be following up, it was always, kind of going into asking for that follow up or, for referrals and things like that. And kind of almost having it, your script and the way that you ask for it was so important, but then it led to so many opportunities that I never would have had. And that's when my sales really exploded, was because I had all these kind of really warm, great leads to kind of follow up on. It was like, hey, I was just talking with, Ann, and she referred me and yada, yada, yada. And it was such a key to unlocking more business for me.
Yes, for sure. Tim wanted to know what carriers are approved in Massachusetts, what group carriers are approved in Massachusetts. And Mark mentioned this tool that we have right here, Product Buddy. And there's a link in the chat if you guys want to check it out. And so you can enter the state. Let's go down to Massachusetts. Let's say employer. How many actively at work? Let's say 50 to 99. Employer funding. Let's say yes.
It's Trustmark Life Plus Care.
There
for sure. Because by going through the case highlights, you can understand why.
Yeah.
So if you click on another carrier, we have very much difficulties getting extension and restoration riders approved in Massachusetts. So Trustmark Life Plus Care does have both, and that gives it a huge edge. It has been missing from Massachusetts for a very, very, very long time, and it is finally available. And this is a product that's on equal footing with a lot of other states out there and their available plan designs. So big opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
Great. And the cool thing about this is if you have an employer or a group that you want to present to this, you can print this out or save it. You can save it and then send it to them or walk through it with them. So it's a super cool tool. So, all right.
I do want to give a special mention kind of related to that, Gretchen, which
Yeah.
is if you do use Claude or Claude Cowork, very quick to put together one-pagers where you can customize them and add your logos and your contact information. So if you're having trouble like brainstorming and thinking about, well, how do I open up the conversation? What should I send to them? I find AI to be a good brainstorming partner and to see what it comes up with. You'll be surprised if, what you can do with it very quickly. And then once we get those ideas, we oftentimes will then apply that to our whole team and to the whole community and our platform. And a lot of our newer tools you'll start to see are coming from that inspiration.
Right. Okay, so we're kind of running out of time. So for Mark and Jason and Joe, if somebody does nothing else after today, what do you think is the one action item that they should take this week to shake their tree, as we say?
The one that is already the pinprick in their mind. There is, I guarantee, a prospect that you are hesitant to reach out to, or just a nagging thought you've had about, I should prospect more based on this sort of solution. Just take the very first step, even if it's small, rig the rules of the game to make sure that you win. Because yes, systems have a lot to do with it, but mindset is a lot to do with prospecting. My first go around with prospecting was literally as a 23-year-old with a captive carrier that did not provide leads and said, you have to make something out of this list that you will create of friends and family members, meaning other 23-year-olds and family members. And you got to prospect your way out of this metal cube, essentially. It sucked.
It was a test, Jason. It was a test.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
You've all been there.
Or maybe I didn't. But at the end of the day, it's just start with the most obvious, rig the rules of the game so that you can consider it a win, even if you set the goalposts at just reach out and I have one. Do that. Make it simple.
Yeah, I would say also add a deadline for your clients. They're coming to you for a plan. Give them the roadmap to help them get to where they want to be, but give them a deadline themselves to accomplish it. I find that has a great impact. It's not pressure filled. It just kind of gets that unlimited horizon out of the way up front, and you all both have a common goal that you can agree to.
Good point. And I would say consistency. Just continue to work it, continue to reach out, continue to like Mark said, provide value, and they'll think of you when they're ready, because yes, we all know this is the long game. So if you're consistent, you'll be top of mind with them.
Can I share a referral idea?
Yeah.
I have postcards made up, and it starts out saying you could be a hero to somebody. When somebody needs care, they're overwhelmed. This is the first time it's happened in their family. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. Tell them you got a guy. I got a guy, the long-term care guy. He can help you fill out paperwork. He can explain what's happening. He can explain how Medicaid works. He can explain all of this to you and help you out. And there's no cost for meeting him and finding out how this is. So be a hero to somebody at church, somebody you know that needs it, and they don't know what to do. I got a guy. He might be able to help you.
Want to know what practice looks like? It looks like that right there.
Actually, the postcard, here's what happened. I would mail these out at renewal sometimes, and I had a stack of them about this high sitting on my conference table. and somebody here for a meeting picked up one and read it, and a little bit later picked up two more. And then everybody that comes to my office for any reason whatsoever is forced to pick up one of these and read it out loud and take it with them. And by the time they finish reading, they usually ask for a couple more. And so now there always is a stack sitting on my desk. I just couldn't get them put away. I'm sorry they're in the way here.
Romeo, that's amazing. I love that.
That comes from a place of truly believing that you can help people and having a track record of helping people.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Way to go, Romeo. Love that. All right. Joe, did you have something?
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, kind of piggyback off that a little bit is I would challenge you all, this week in one of your conversations, who can you, say, how can I help you? I've helped you plan with long-term care. Who in your network could you connect me with that I could speak with and also help them plan as well? Because you've helped them so much and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who you should talk to this person. Let me give you their number, and make that warm transfer of a contact, and then you got a new contact in your CRM to start follow up with and start nurturing and start doing the same wonderful things you did with them. I think that's what I would challenge you with.
And ask that person what they found most helpful about the experience with you, and you can flip it and say, is there anybody else who you think could find value in that same part of this planning process? It just gives them something specific and emotionally tied to think about, and that'll help them think of other people a little bit better.
Yeah, and Chris pointed out, yeah, it is a game of numbers for sure. All sales is, but in this case, it's also a game of relationships and partnerships. So yeah, just continue to nurture those. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for being with us today. If you don't have anything else, we will let you bust loose and start do some prospecting.
Appreciate y'all. Be good.
Thanks, everybody.